forget and just fly into the wall.
Alright.
If I too focus on something, I'll be like, wait a second, and then I just fly into it. Maybe I have no idea. I don't know. Uh, like multitasking like that. I've never tried it, so I have no clue.
Me
But I don't
neither.
think I'm eager to do it. Yeah.
But look, you literally when you walk,
Yeah.
you just shift side to side, and imagine
Yeah.
trying to type and think and just do something while walking. Like it's not.
Exactly.
I don't know. I think people trying to multitask, like it's a different level of multitasking. Like I appreciate having two tabs open in Chrome browser. Okay, that's fine. You can handle
Yeah.
email and LinkedIn at the same time. But
Yeah.
man, like workout and work at the same time, that's
Yeah.
too much in my opinion.
Yeah. I would rather just dedicate an hour and go for a run
Right?
than like
Yeah. Simple
just
as
like
that. Like,
walk. Yeah.
jeez.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And plus, like when being outside is just healthier. Like the nature, the air, everything. I think it all contributes overall to the workout. Like
Yeah.
if you're just walking in the room, that's you're breathing in and spending all like I don't know. It just it doesn't
It
feel
gets
healthy.
stuffy, you get hot,
Yeah,
I guess. It's like yeah, it can't. I don't know. Some people vouch for it. I haven't tried, so I'm not here to criticize
yeah.
or judge, but I'm wary of it. Like I don't think I would just jump in straight away. uh, I don't know.
A- And I think that when you walk and you use a mouse or keyboard, essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to keep your upper body stable, but then your legs are moving. But when you're actually naturally walking, your whole body participates. That's what makes it healthy. It's not about like 10,000 steps of just any steps with your body, your legs moving, but it's just like the whole body contributing to the whole cardiovascular system. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of half baked solution. If you want to be healthy, just go exercise, go around, go do something about it, just proper. Not I don't know, just yeah,
That's a
not
very
my
fair
thing.
comment, actually. And I
Yeah,
would probably imagine that 50 minutes outside
yeah.
is as healthy as I don't know 1 hour walking on the treadmill or some stuff. Well, it's hard to
Yeah,
compare, obviously, but I would imagine
yeah,
you get the value from the outdoor exercise much faster than you would get from the inside workout, right?
for sure. Yeah, I think so too. Especially
Um,
if you walk in a park with fresh air and trees and everything. Like if you make
Squirrels, yeah,
yeah,
sure,
and
yeah, all the fun.
and it's uneven terrain too, right? That's why hiking is so healthy
Yeah,
or good. It's because it's uneven terrain. Your legs, your muscles, your joints are constantly moving. But on the treadmill, you're just flat. I don't even think it's healthy for your feet necessarily. And then what
absolutely.
shoes do you wear? Do you wear shoes on the treadmill? Like at home, your feet are not breathing now. It's like
So many questions, man.
yeah, I don't know what's
Yeah,
happening there,
it's
but
weird.
yeah,
When I used to train for marathon, my trainer he would say, "Go run outside because
yeah,
the terrain is uneven. You get
yeah,
wind blowing, you get
yeah,
sun, you get to live in the environment where in which the actual test happens, the marathon itself." So,
yeah.
like, I mean, if you have really shitty weather,
Uh-huh.
sure, substitute that for like treadmill. Okay, that's
Yeah,
fine. But
yeah.
then the minute it goes, the weather becomes better, just leave house. Like just go
That's it.
there. Try to
Yeah,
work on the way you put your feet down, where your hips go. Like use the whole body to make you
yeah,
faster. And yeah,
yeah.
that was a great tip. I mean, I finished the marathon eventually. Almost died, but hey,
Good for you. Yeah.
yeah, it's a memory.
I
I will
once.
just quickly fix my hair
Okay.
because
Yep. Yep.
this little thing it annoys me. And
Okay.
then I think we're ready to start, right? Like
All
pretty
right.
much.
Yep. No, sounds good to me. Yep.
Okay, that works. That works. This is not a beauty
Long hair
contest.
problems. I know how it feels. I've got long hair myself. Yeah.
You
I
actually
don't like
put them
anything in
together
front of my face.
nicely. What do you do? Do you just wax them towards the back to make them sit like this?
No, I just brush it to the back, and then put it in a man bun.
Oh, I
Um.
love the I love men. Mine is too short for a man bun. I think
Yeah,
I
you have to
definitely can't
grow it
put.
out.
Yeah, I have to
Yeah.
grow them out. I
Yeah.
used to have my hair long as far as my hips go.
Oh,
But
what?
then
Wow.
yeah,
Uh huh.
but then my I guess my imagination of what you should look like in business kicked in as a young guy, and so I
Yeah.
cut it very short, and I started to look like any white collar does,
Okay.
and now I kind of rediscovered myself that it wasn't me, and I'm
Yeah.
just growing them back. I don't know. I
Yeah.
love long hair.
Yeah, I love long hair. My, every time you grow long hair, someone will have an opinion. Like my father had an opinion. I was like, you know what? I don't care. It's my
Absolutely.
hair. I gotta do
Yeah.
whatever I gotta do, and just
At
it feels
some
good to
point,
me.
man,
Yeah,
at some point you have to stop caring what others think, really.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
we're grown
So,
as man, like we just don't care.
yeah, that was when I had long hair for decades now, but that was back in the day. So yeah, that's,
And for
once you
those who
leave
don't,
the home at 17, 18, you're like,
yeah,
and,
yeah,
and
absolutely, yeah.
your opinion mattered then. It's good. Now it's kind of like I gotta make my own way. Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah. The
Yeah.
sooner the better. And I think there's
Yeah.
no feeling like headbanging on a metal concert with long hair.
Uh, that's true. Yeah, I've
Yeah,
never been to a metal concert, but I can see that working very
yeah,
well.
yeah.
Yes.
Mosh pit on on a Slipknot or
Uh-huh.
Metallica or like any
Yeah.
Children of Bodom, any concert like this. It's my favorite.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
used to
I risk
listen
my
to
life, but hey, it's
Rammstein.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah. When I grew up, I was into Rammstein. I would buy the cassettes.
Ooh, great,
Yeah.
great, great band. Been to their live concert. Oh man,
Yeah.
this is a different experience. Like something new.
It's also a
Honestly.
different life back in the day. But yeah, I remember collecting those cassettes and we would
Yeah,
listen to them. It was just great. It was great. But yeah,
sounds
it was a
awesome.
long time ago.
Hey,
Yeah.
before we run out of the energy, should we talk about the stuff?
Let's do it. Let's
Let's
talk
do
about
it.
the stuff. Yeah.
The stuff. Okay. So again, I just honestly I was thinking where to start the whole conversation.
Okay.
We'll be talking about you know search strategy and in between SEO, PPC, lead generation. Maybe there'll be something
Yeah.
about positioning, brand. It's a vast topic,
Okay.
but I will try to keep it on the search strategy as much as I can. Um, and
Okay.
to me, a good starter would be if you could tell me
Uh-huh.
what do you mean by search strategy, like on a high level. What is it?
Yeah. Oh, we're already starting.
Go for it. Yeah, just go
Oh,
for it.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, are we live on social media platforms right now, or?
Oh yeah, for a
Oh, we
minute.
are. All
Yeah, yeah.
right.
I mean, look, people joined for your story about Rammstein. Now
All
they're
right.
gonna
That's
leave.
good.
No-
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. Yeah. So let's dive deep into the search strategy.
Sure.
So whenever we start on a new project, right? So let's say if we get a new client and whatnot, what we really like to do is we like to go through the exercise of figuring out what we call an SEO landscape, right? So
Mm,
when it comes to search, whether it's SEO or paid advertising, it's all based on existing demand, right? So someone has to search for something on Google in order for you to monetize that, grab that traffic, bring it to your traffic, and then do whatever you need to do. And so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can look into the actual data. And so a lot of times we'll start with an extensive keyword research. We'll look at tens of hundreds of thousands of keywords, boils them down to something keywords that are actually relevant to the business, right?
hmm
So something that's bottom of the funnel, middle of the funnel, top of the funnel. It's not as black and white in real world. Obviously, nobody
Sure.
is. I'm straight on the top of the funnel, right? Educate me. It's never as straightforward, but we do try to kind of break them down into those categories just to understand what type of content to create, what type of landing pages, right? Because or types
Mm,
of pages in general. So bottom of the funnel, you need something that's more landing page type, right? So coming out of web design world, you obviously know the importance of creating something that's built for conversions. So
mhm.
bottom of the funnel, middle of the funnel will be very much conversion focused. Middle funnel to top of the funnel will be very much education focused. And so
Yep.
now you have to map keywords to those stages and say that, hey, someone is searching for what is web development. We obviously know that they're not ready to buy. We just have to give them education via text, via audio, via video, whatever formats and mediums we can integrate into that copy, the better.
Mhm.
And then kind of try to nurture them to go further. So, are you interested in web development services? Do you want to do them yourself? Great. Here's education. Are you looking for someone who you want to partner up with? Great. Let's do business together. And so you nurture them down that funnel. And so a lot of times strategy will be figuring out what that content calendar would look like, right? For long form content, for landing pages, for comparison pages, like one brand versus the other, or let's say QuickBooks alternative. We've ranked in the past with companies that I used to work with for QuickBooks alternative, whatever alternative, right? So those pages work really well because you already know that the person has a solution already that they're using, but they're not happy with it. And so why not to position yourself? Why not to place yourself in that consideration set, in the mindset of the customer, and basically say, hey, you don't like QuickBooks? Fantastic, we've got a solution for you
Yeah.
that's better, right? And so SEO strategy will be all figuring out those types of opportunities. But there are a lot of opportunities. It really comes down to what's really important to the business, like which ones can we implement and get some quick wins. So that's going to be kind of short term priorities. And then anything mid to long term is going to be, we there is a lot. It's those SERPs, search engine result pages, are quite competitive, so it's going to be long term play. We'll need to do a lot of internal linking. We'll need to maybe build some external links, do some PR and whatnot. And so all of that is going to be part of the strategy. But everything, in my opinion, in my experience, starts with a good, solid keyword research. Many opportunities, more opportunities you can find, the better. Right. We, right from the start, we create a spreadsheet that looks at every single opportunity that we think is good to create for the next 12 to 24 months, and then go and execute on that, as well as looking at what the client already has on a website. Right. Can we repurpose it? Can we delete some of it if it's too much fluff? Right? We still want to make sure that it stays on topic, stays within the niche that the client is in, just so that that topical relevance is clearly seen by Google.
Hmm.
That makes sense?
It really does.
Hmm.
It's a very good answer, and thank you. And I have lots of questions, so get ready.
Let's do it.
Right. I'm very glad you mentioned this short term, long term. I will get back to it later because I think there's a fine line to find there.
Yeah.
Because essentially you need those quick wins to
Yeah.
sustain the business, but you can't
Yep.
be investing in quick wins all the time. You have to play the
Yes.
long game. But
Yep.
we'll get back to it in a second. Um, I am of an opinion, and it's probably just like just common sense, I guess. The output is only as good as the input, and
Okay.
with keywords being the input, you need to find those opportunities that will produce a good output. Could
Hmm.
you speak to the quality of a keyword and what makes a good keyword?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. So when we look at keywords, the best keywords that we can go after are the ones that are very much, let's just stick to the funnel, bottom of the funnel, the ones that are
Hmm.
conversion focused, right? So I think in the age of AI, especially, a lot of that top of the funnel stuff can be answered by AI itself, right? So when it comes to education, information, they will do a pretty good job over the long term. But when it comes to actually providing a solution, when it comes to actually solving a problem, people will be looking for software, for example. They will be looking for a product. They will be looking for a service. So those are the ones that are highest quality in our opinion, right? And when we look at those keywords, we always try to make sure that those keywords are exactly relevant to what the business is trying to sell. Right. So if a company sells project management solution, quality keywords will be the ones that have to do with best project management software, or project management software just as a keyword itself,
Hmm.
right? Project management software for engineers, extremely good keyword, right? Because it's very targeted and speaks specific to the specific audience, which means that when we go and we look at that keyword, project management software for engineers, the entire landing page can be built for just that target audience, engineers, right? The entire copy, the visuals we use on that
Hmm.
page, everything can be very much tailored to that core audience that we know is searching for project management software. So we love those types of keywords. We've looked into, let's say, keywords like accounting software for small business, accounting software for freelancers. The more specific, the more descriptive it is, the better the quality of that term. However, what happens when you find those more descriptive bottom of the funnel terms, the search volume decreases. Right. So
Yes.
there's a lot less people searching for software, whatever software for freelancers compared to just software in general.
Hmm.
So that vagueness brings in a ton more traffic, but it's a lot harder to figure out who you're speaking to necessarily. A small business, an engineer, a project manager, a freelancer. It's a little bit harder to figure out, but the more descriptive it gets, the lower the search volume, but the more opportunities you have to convert that into actual customers. So when we look at keywords, we look at how descriptive, how much information we can derive by just looking at that term, as well as what is the total opportunity looks like. Even if it's 50 or 100 searches a month, what if we get 20%, 15% of that into the page, and then we convert at 10%? It's 1, 2 good quality subscriptions, let's say. we'll talk to the business and ask, is that worthwhile, right? Will that make it worthwhile for you to invest into creating this landing page? And if it's a yes, then it's a quality keyword, a quality page to create, and then you go from there.
So you describe quality as an intent behind a keyword in a way.
Intent, yep. So if someone has intent to buy, that's a quality keyword.
Okay.
The other one would be how much information we can derive from the keyword, right? So does it tell me who I'm speaking to, so that the copy
Okay.
can be much more customized to that audience? Because the more custom the copy is, the better the conversion rate is going to be, right? So if I know who I'm speaking to, the more I can tailor the entire experience, and the more likely I am to get a good return, a good conversion off of that.
You said that a keyword, let's say that's between 50 and 100 searches
Yeah,
a month.
yeah,
That is, it could be good enough to convert just a few of those people a month.
could be.
Um,
Yep.
h- First of all, where do you get that information from? I assume some kind of tool, but
Yeah.
how so reliable it is.
Okay.
But second of all, how low can you go with that search volume to be any relevant to your work?
Okay. So let's start with the tools. There are a lot of different tools. All of them estimate the searches, right? So all of those are
Yeah.
estimated searches. So we can never trust 100% what the numbers we're seeing there. But you could use, let's say, Google Keyword Planner, right? So that's what's
Hmm.
available within Google Ads platform, and so you
Hmm.
can go and use straight from Google. There is a Google Keyword Planner. If you are paying for the ads, it will give you actual searches, like number, 50 searches a month, 500, 5,000. If you are not paying for the ads, they're gonna give you a range. It's gonna say 100 to 1,000 searches a month, which, directionally okay, but not super helpful.
I didn't know about
Um,
this difference, by the way. That you only
yeah,
get like precise number when you pay for the ad.
yeah. When you have active campaigns, or you've had active campaigns in recent times, then they will show you exact search volume. But
Ah,
if you create a brand new account with no spend in it, you're gonna see the range. Yeah.
sneaky, sneaky. Okay. Well, okay,
Yeah,
fine.
that's how they. Well, it's understandable in a way. It's a free tool. They're trying to kind of push you into spending using it for the ads itself, but it's a good starting point.
Hmm.
The other ones, paid tools like a Rush or Ahrefs, right? Both are good. So pick one or the other,
Hmm.
or if you want to afford both, use both. Both are pretty good, but I find SEMrush to be better at search volumes. I find the numbers to be a bit more reliable. Each tool has its own strengths, its own weaknesses, but for us, we use SEMrush quite a bit, right? So that's a tool that we use for a lot for keyword research. And then there are cheaper options like Uber Suggest, for example, which I'm not 100% certain, but I think they might be using some of the Google Ads APIs,
Oh,
but I'm not sure if that's what's happening there. But don't quote me on that.
yeah.
When I teach SEO, obviously students don't always can afford SEMrush or Ahrefs, so we'll go with Uber Suggest because it's like it allows them to do 3 searches a day. So it's a great starting tool. And so they like it. It opens up a whole new world for them, but it's affordable. And the data is it looks good and reliable. Yeah.
I spoke to a guy who leads SEO efforts in Klarna,
Okay.
and he said that his favorite free tool to find keywords is to use Google autocomplete. So when you actually search in Google and you type in web
Yeah.
design, it completes the query for you. What do you think of
Yeah.
that?
I think it takes a while to yeah, to find all those outer suggestions.
Probably.
Yeah, it's good. I think it's a good starting point to get ideas.
Hmm.
But when you are looking at 30, 50, 100,000 keywords, like I
Okay.
just can't,
I
like
see where
you'll
you're
have to
going with this. Yeah.
yeah, you'll have to find a way to automate it in some way or another.
And then,
Plus,
uh,
yeah,
yeah. Go ahead. Go
auto
ahead. Go ahead.
suggest can be based on your personal search history, and so those can be personalized. So I'm not 100% sure if you can. It's good for some additional ideas. So I'm not saying you shouldn't use it. It's just you'll probably want to exhaust the larger pool available through SEMrush and the other tools. Like download those hundreds of thousands first,
Hmm.
filter through them, and then based on what you see there, start to go into people also ask, start to go into auto suggest and picking up extra stuff on top of that, to build up more opportunities for articles and whatnot. Yeah.
I think if you go for incognito mode and try to
Yeah.
type something in, it will follow the user trends rather than your
Prob-
personal preferences. So
Yeah.
it might be helpful, as you said, like as a complementary product
Yeah.
rather than
Yeah.
main tool in the shed. Um,
Yep.
Another thing that comes to mind is Google Search Console. We use it quite a lot, especially to search for low
Yes.
hanging fruits. We would
Yep.
order all the pages that the Google has ranked on our website
Yep.
by position, and then
Yep.
those that are like 10.8 position, which is almost first page, we would
Yeah.
work on it to bring into the first page because it's not
Yeah.
much effort to do it, and that's something we also do for ourselves. I don't know if that's something you've practiced, but I thought I would just throw it in.
Google Search Console is number one tool you should be using for
Hmm.
any kind of optimization once you do have content on a website, right? So once you have content, once you published a lot of content, what happens is that, like you said, you can look at keywords that your pages are ranking for. And so if they're, you have to filter by a page first, then filter by a keyword for the
Hmm.
specific keyword you're trying to go after. Then it's good to add a country filter, just
Hmm.
because if you look at rankings in India versus United States, it can be drastically different. United States SERPs are very competitive, and so quite often we'll find that our rankings in United States are lower than the rankings that are in India, for example, right? And so as a result, you want to filter those. Now, when you've done those things, yes, you look at it and you try to, okay, how can we? What trend are we seeing? Are we seeing downward trend? Are we decreasing in rankings, or we're seeing upward trend? So we're improving. So what can we do further to improve our performance? However, that's to optimize existing content. What you can also do is you can look at that page that you filtered by, and then look at all the keywords that you don't rank for very well. Let's say position 50, 60, 90, right? And so you take
Hmm.
those keywords that you don't rank very well, put them into Google, search for them, and see what kind of results come up. And if you see that results are drastically different from the ones you do rank for, then it's an opportunity to create an additional page, right? So what
Ah,
Google does is that it shows your page for many keywords, and sometimes you'll pick up on something that's kind of relevant but not fully optimized for, right? And that's what you're not going to be ranking for well. But if you see a lot of impressions for those terms, you're ranking position 87 for that keyword, but it's got 7,000, 10,000, 12,000 impressions. That means people are searching a lot,
yeah.
right? So what if we create a whole new article and we rank for that term and we grab those impressions on those clicks? That's also how you can do keyword research with using Google Search Console, but you need existing pages on your site in order to
Wow,
do
that's
that.
actually pretty great. I
Yeah,
love that.
it's Google Search Console is highly underutilized in my opinion in the SEO community, but there is a tremendous amount of data and value in it. Like looking at how you can improve existing stuff, but also how you can create new stuff, right? And so we use it all the time. We'll find new opportunities, and it's kind of like SEMrush will assume what search volume looks like, or they'll use their own calculations, whatever they do.
Yeah, yeah.
But Google Search Console will show you what Google is actually kind of calculating on their part. And so I would rather use that data, and use those impressions to figure out, is there an opportunity there? And if it is, then we go after it. Yeah.
Like imagine if you're ranking on the eighth page and you have
Yeah.
7,000 impressions.
Yeah.
What would it be like if you were on the first page, man? That's just
Exactly.
crazy numbers. So totally worth the investment, I think.
Exactly.
But
Yep.
the thing is with keywords, for example, think of web design, and I guess it goes back to my question about how niche is to niche. Um,
Hmm.
Web design is overly saturated,
Yes.
right? It's
Yep.
crazy.
Yep.
If I wanted to rank on the first page, I would have to
Uh,
compete with companies like Clutch.
Yes.
How am I supposed to do that? It's just crazy. So it
Yeah.
makes sense to then add those long tail phrases, right, to sort of go around it. But how long can you go before it stops making sense? Can you speak to that?
Um, I'm actually not opposed to creating content for highly competitive terms, even if you don't think you will rank for it.
Oh,
Right?
really?
It's 100%. The reason why is because when I look at the keywords, it tells me that people out there are asking those questions. They're curious about that information. And so,
Hmm.
yes, you can go and you can create something that's more, more long tail, and then just skip this short tail opportunity. But what if those people who come off the long tail, they browse your blog and they still have the question to which you did not want to answer or did not want to write an answer just because was too competitive, right? Like they
Hmm.
still might be curious about that, and you can still use that as, hey, here's more articles, related articles. And let's say, what would be a keyword? Give me a keyword on web design. What would be
WordPress
top
web
web
design.
WordPress web design? Let's say, well, it's a bit more transactional, I think, but
Ah, okay.
yeah.
So how to set up blog on WordPress?
Okay, how to set up blog on a WordPress, right? So if someone is searching for that and you look at that and you say that, you know what, it's too competitive, we're going to be competing with WP Beginner and all those other
Yeah,
folks who have been
exactly.
there for
Yeah.
centuries, right? Like, should we
Yeah.
even should we even bother with that? And then you're like, well, let's create another article that talks about WordPress, but we just skip this article altogether. Okay, so you brought someone else through the other keyword that has to do with WordPress. But what if that person still has a question about how to set up a blog? What if they're still curious about it, but they're already on your blog? Can't you
Mm.
drive them to that content, to that article by saying, here's a related article, learn how to set up your own blog on a WordPress, right? And so you then bring them to that piece of content. For me, it's more about education. And even if customers come from other keywords, they might be still curious about the article that's highly that you did not want to create for because it's too competitive. That's one. And two, when Google looks at it, it's probably going to ask itself a question, or at least I would. You're talking about WordPress, but you're not answering a very, very good
Eh,
topic that you should be answering. You
Sure.
know, like, what's wrong
Yeah.
with you? Do you have WordPress authority, right? And so I would still put it in. I would still create that piece of content, and I would just put it into the long-term opportunity. I would say that, you know what, we're not going to rank for it, let's say, in 12 months, if that's a beginner set, whatever it might be. It might be 2 years, 3 years down the road kind of opportunity.
Hmm.
But what's going to happen as we write more content about WordPress, we're going to include internal links back to this article. We're going to talk about this article in all our other, low hanging fruit opportunities. And then over time, this article is going to build up authority, and algorithm might change, updates might change, or you might, sometime you might get links to that article and whatnot, and over time it might actually start to rank because SERPs shift, competitors shift around too. And so I always think about SEO as a long-term play, and I don't want to leave holes in my content map on a site. I
Hmm.
want to make sure that if we're talking about WordPress, if we want to be expert on WordPress, we should just answer every single one of those questions, put them on a website, and use that as an opportunity to educate a customer, and then over the long term to rank for those terms when that happens.
So,
Make sense?
okay, just to
Yeah.
reiterate on that. So, you say if you want to be considered an expert on a particular topic,
Yeah.
you create almost like a mini site or a knowledge base with all the possible questions that people might have. And so that way, a user that enters one of those articles, they stay within the knowledge base.
Yes and no. Like, I wouldn't want to go and answer every single question that doesn't necessarily have the searches. Sometimes there is zero search opportunities there that are worthwhile kind of creating articles about. But if I know that if someone is searching for how to set up a WordPress blog and that gets, there's no reason not to have it. Clearly, there is demand for it. And I can take that article and I can use it for
Hmm.
social media too, right? I can be like, hey, I've got an audience on Facebook, and I can share this article once every quarter and be like, hey, folks, just to revisit the topic of WordPress blogs, here's our all-time favorite. Feel free to check it out. You could run ads against it on Facebook too. You can use it in your email newsletter. I just want to think about content outside of the SEO box. Like, not everything needs to necessarily rank on day one in order to justify that as an opportunity, right? If it ranks in a year or two, that's okay. We're still going to make the most of
Yeah.
it by utilizing it across other channels. I just need to make sure that there is actual volume there, that people want an answer to that particular question. If I see demand for it, there is no reason not to have it. One obviously downside is going to be you have to spend money to create it. So if you can justify the expense and
Hmm.
you can then utilize that strategically across all different channels, there's no reason not to have it, in my opinion. It also helps Google understand that, hey, you're answering this question, you're answering that question that people search for, and we know they search for because they have impressions data, they have the search data, and they're basically saying, yeah, you're establishing yourself as an authority on WordPress topic, right? And so I would go for it as long as you're staying with that WordPress topic. I wouldn't go and create a glossary for everything, like every single tiny thing. What is word? I don't know. What is whatever small tiny nuance of WordPress? Like maybe I would not go for that.
Sure.
But if I know that there's a ton of searches, I would 100% use that as an opportunity. Yeah.
This reminds me, Wikipedia doesn't Wikipedia do the same thing? Every article has like hundreds of links below that links
Yep,
to each other. That's
they
very
do.
similar.
Yeah. Yeah, their intent was, I don't know if they ever built Wikipedia for the purposes of ranking on Google. I think the objectives was always to create just a knowledge base, right?
Yeah.
They wanted to be a knowledge base of everything that there is going on in the world. And they've done the job, arguably, right? They've done the job. And Google relied on Wikipedia not because they're doing great SEOs, they relied on them because they have this editorial process that ensures information is somewhat correct,
Mm-hmm.
and Google kind of used that as a result. So Google happened, in my opinion, after as a side effect of doing a good job at
I
Wikipedia,
think
in
so
my
too.
opinion. Yeah,
Yeah, so Wikipedia did a really good job with creating comprehensive information on about pretty much everything, and then Google learned from them how to structure
exactly.
information so people can actually use it.
Exactly. They used it for knowledge graph.
Yes.
They use that for entity understanding. And so I think as businesses, we have to approach content in a similar way. It's like not everything is about SEO or Google, right?
Right, right.
Especially in the modern day, like we're seeing the importance of diversification. Now that you have OpenAI or ChatGPT search, right? You have growing popularity of Perplexity, and kind of Bing is entering back into the competitive space. So it's like, let's build content that we think users care about and
Mm-hmm.
that we can utilize across many different channels. Like if there is no justification for having that content, then I don't think we need to create it. But if we know that we can make the best of it in email and in social, and we can create a video about it, because if people search for it on Google, they probably search for it on YouTube. Why not
Right.
to create a YouTube video to accompany the article?
Mm-hmm.
It's like such a fundamental question how to set up a blog on WordPress, right? There is no reason not to have it because we can maximize it across many different channels.
We keep mentioning Google, and
Yeah,
I mean rightfully so. It's like I think I read
yeah,
like 92% of the web traffic is from Google.
yep.
What do you make of the whole thing, like AI search, like ChatGPT search? Do you even worry about this at all? Do you optimize for it somehow? Can you even? Do you have any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, so GPT search is new, right? It's only been what, a month and a half at the time of the recording, and so based on our test, based on what we've seen, it's pretty much pulling the results that you see on Bing, right? So there is a partnership
Ah,
between OpenAI and Microsoft, and so obviously the quickest way for OpenAI to build this search engine would be to utilize Bing, and so whatever we see ranking well on Bing, we actually see showing up in GPT search, right? I was on a client call, and we looked into GPT search. It was first time that they saw it, and GPT search showed like four results. And then one of the clients was like, "This is funny. I searched for that same keyword on Bing, and then it shows me 10 results instead of four, but it's exactly the same order."
oh
Right?
no,
So
really?
yeah,
Wow.
ChatGPT took those results, truncated them, made them, add a summary, made that, kind of a write up that AI is good at, right? To accompany the whole blue links or whatever links, and essentially it is a Bing result. So for now, I think that there's no real magic to it. It's if you can rank for Bing, you can technically show up in GPT search, and so that's how we would optimize. We would
Hmm.
optimize and see how Bing is performing, and then expect to see a similar thing in GPT. But the one thing that I always try to draw attention to, a lot of folks talk about AI, right? What should we do for AI? What should we do for AI? I think we have to differentiate as to what we mean by AI. Like there are AI tools like ChatGPT, and then there are AI search engines like GPT search, and then let's say AI overviews on Google, right?
Hmm.
They function in very different ways. ChatGPT has data up to October, November 2023. So it's 1 year behind, right? So optimizing for ChatGPT when you ask a question and the chat conversation happens without links and without anything, it's a whole different ball game.
Mm-hmm.
Optimizing for GPT search is just a Bing result, right? So very much make sure that whenever you talk about SEO, separate the two because the optimizations are going to be drastically different. I don't know if I've seen enough data from folks on optimizing for ChatGPT for that conversation because it's a 1 year lag that you're
Mm-hmm.
working with there. So I don't know if I truly trust the data that I'm seeing, but optimizing for GPT search is not that difficult. As well as AI overviews on Google, it, it was kind of a dumpster fire in the first few
Yeah.
months that they launched it. But now you can see that if you do good SEO and you're actually showing up high or
Mm-hmm.
in the normal searches, it actually pulls you into the AI overviews. We were looking at another client yesterday, and we saw our client being one and number two in those kind of links that show up on the side. And so we've been doing this just a good SEO practices on a site, and that pulls us into AI overviews. So yeah,
When you say to rank for Bing, it just sounds
yeah,
weird. I don't know. It's
yeah.
just funny. Like
Yeah,
no one says
because
that.
a lot of us associate SEO with Google, right? We're like
Yeah.
SEO means Google. It's like, and this is what's happening now, and that's what I was talking about for a long time. Is that history repeats itself, right? So, um, if you look at social media, for example, you had these behemoths in the industry, but like MySpace, right? And
Yeah.
everybody saw MySpace was big, and then Facebook came around, and then everybody's like, Facebook is a big thing. Everybody's on social media, right? And then what happens? Facebook kills organic reach, and literally less than 2%, going from 26%. Businesses like BuzzFeed go underwater because they put all their eggs into organic reach on Facebook. And then you see all these other social media platforms popping in: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, right? Twitter, whatever, like in whatever sequence that they did. And so then what happened is that social media didn't die, it is just diversified. It
Sure.
became lots of different platforms that you had to optimize for, you had to create content for. Search, Google had monopoly for a very long time, which is why we got so used to just caring about Google. But I think it was long overdue for disruption. And that's what we see now happening with OpenAI coming into the space and basically saying, and AI technology pretty much being the tech that can disrupt search, and saying that, hey, you know what, you don't have to use just Google, you can actually use now GPT search and Perplexity and whatever else, right? So I think that search history is repeating itself in a way that it happened in social media and it's still around and we're still making money with social media.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be the same thing. It's just going to be diversification. So yes, it's weird to think about SEO like Bing,
Bing.
but
Yeah.
or now we have to think like Bing and GPT search. And if you care about Perplexity, Perplexity, I think Perplexity is going to be kind of like a DuckDuckGo of modern search. Is just going to become
Yeah.
DuckDuckGo of AI search. I think the biggest players are going to be pretty much Google, Bing, and GPT search. So, but it's going to diverse. It's going to the space is going to pretty much become a bit more crowded, which is good. I think that whenever there is competition, it creates innovation, and Google hasn't
Absolutely.
innovated in a long time when it comes
Oh
to
yeah.
search, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Yeah, and
I,
they've been increasing prices. Like every business you talk to, like Enterprise, for example, used to work with TD Bank and Toyota. We would
mhm.
always say every year you're going to pay Google tax, because every year those CPC costs just keep going up for no
Mhm.
reason,
Mhm.
right? And the DOJ investigations and whatnot into Google pretty much shows that they were inflating prices for their ads. And so getting more competition into space opens up opportunities, right? The same thing happened with Facebook. Now we have opportunities to advertise everywhere else. We'll have the
Mhm.
same thing with Google, and I think it's going to be another golden age of paid advertising, in my opinion. Anyone who's looking at the paid advertising entering into it, I think it's going to be hot, and it's still hot now. It's going to be even better moving forward. Yeah,
I agree. Google is happening. Is getting too close to being a monopoly, essentially, and it's very
they
good
might
to
already
see.
be.
It might already be, and even though we
Yeah,
have those antitrust laws, and
yeah,
technically we have alternatives. I mean, let's be honest, right? I
yeah,
mean, uh, try using DuckDuckGo for a second and see how happy you are. Like you
yeah.
won't be happy for long. Really, I mean, it's probably good when you search for bread recipe, But when you try
Yeah.
to like actually do some work and find very niche stuff or very I don't know, maybe nerdy stuff, some data, stats, whatever that's very specific,
Hmm.
Google is your friend. It always
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
DuckDuckGo just can't compete, not at all.
Yeah.
So I would love to see more Bing and alikes getting up to speed to diversify the portfolio. I mean, so as you said, we don't have to put all the eggs in the same basket, which we're
Yeah.
doing right now. On
Yeah.
the note of the ChatGPT being 2023, I've only heard lately that when you subscribe to ChatGPT, you get access to the version that has access to the internet. So maybe
Yeah. It
something's
can browse the
changed.
internet. Yes.
Yeah, so
So
maybe it's a bit more relevant then. But
yeah, so if you ask it to crawl the site or to access the website, right, depending on whether the website allows it or not, it will do that and then pulls the information in. But the
mhm.
corpus data itself, the knowledge base that ChatGPT relies on, is from 2023. So there's still, I think, a year
Aha.
lag. Yeah, but it will run the analysis and make its own assumptions about what's written on the page and whatnot, and then give you kind of a summary or an answer that you're looking for. So, but I don't know that that information will then feed into the knowledge base. That's the one thing that we have to be cautious about. Just because it gave you an answer doesn't mean that answer is part of the corpus now, right?
Yes.
Because they have to be also careful as to what they feed into the knowledge base in order for the AI to not to hallucinate or not to give you any kind of wrong information and not to infringe on IPs and so on and so on.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a huge task for them to solve for, but
Yeah.
as far as I know, it's still 1 year behind.
Okay. So let's recap what we've said so far before we move on to the next topic. So
Yeah,
we spoke broadly about keywords,
yeah,
and the quality of the keyword is essentially the intent behind it and how likely the person that uses that keyword is to convert and how close they match to the ideal customer that we're looking for. And when
yeah,
you conduct this kind of keyword analysis research, you look for keywords that are for the top of the funnel, mid of the funnel, bottom of the funnel. And the top of
yeah,
the funnel is essentially value add content. Then middle of the funnel is some kind of like case studies. We're slowly getting to the final bottom of the funnel, which is the offer. It could be
yeah,
some kind of audit, some
yeah,
kind of I don't know demo, whatever.
yeah,
So, um, and then obviously you have to consider Google as the primary, well, I guess, traffic provider, but you also
yeah.
have to keep in mind other search engines such as Bing because now they are tied in the same bed essentially with ChatGPT, who uses their data to provide traffic to your
For the
website as
time
well.
being, yes. Yeah,
Yeah, for the time being,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So we have lots to choose from,
yeah,
and as I guess as a business owner, this might feel a bit overwhelming. Uh,
yeah.
can you first of all, before we dive into any kind of practical tips, etc., could you try to explain to me what's different in approach for small business versus enterprise business? How should they think of SEO depending on their stage?
Yeah. So to simplify, to kind of boil it all down, it was the way I teach SEO, for example, there's three things to it. There's content, there's link building, and there's technical, right? So
Mm-hmm.
all of those can be important but at different stages of your business or website growth, those three things are going to have different priorities. So let's say when I worked with KPMG as a client in the
Okay.
past, large business, right? They were targeting 142 countries and languages, so they had this whole international website, right?
Wow.
Uh, they had a ton of backlinks, right?
Oh
They
yeah.
had a ton of content, right? So KPMG as a brand, they get all this exposure from news and everything. They do all sorts of case studies and whatnot, so that everybody will link to them at some point or another. So when it comes to websites like that, quite often SEO will be less about building extra links and is going to be more about solving technical problems. How do we make sure that Google can crawl the pages? How can we make sure that the crawl is
Mm,
efficient? How do we make sure that we're not blocking anything? How do we make sure that any internal linking that happens on that site is optimized for us to rank and kind of make sure that the content is very well written? So content and technical kind of become a big part of that, right? On an enterprise level, on large websites, especially technical. Solving technical problems is half of the job on SEO, enterprise
Mm.
SEO. As you start to kind of go down the size of the business, going to middle size businesses that have fair, middle, uh, not huge websites, but big enough websites, there you start to look at more into content play, right? So technical is not as big of a problem. You probably can solve it because the website is not as big to deal with. It's probably built on some very friendly CMS,
Yeah.
whether it's WordPress or Webflow or something along those lines, where you can at least do some automation in the back end and whatnot. So content becomes a big part of it. How do we create more content? How do we create better content? How do we make sure that that content is properly internally linked and everything like that? So on that middle size, content becomes important. And then I would say surgical strategic link building becomes kind of important, because mid-sized businesses, mid-sized websites, they will have some link portfolio already, right? They don't get to that size without any exposure. They'll have something in a portfolio, and so some link building to particular page you're trying to rank for might be important. But the key point there are going to be content. So think about like website like HubSpot, maybe. I don't know if that
Hmm.
would fall in. It wouldn't be enterprise like KPMG, but it would be probably something more mid-size. So for them, they can do some link building, but they naturally get a lot of links too. And so content becomes a big part of it. And that's why you see so much investment in HubSpot in buying all those content businesses, whether they're buying
Yes.
newsletters, whether they're buying podcasts, like they're becoming a media company rather than a
Absolutely.
software. Yeah. And then you get into the small business, small website, space, and there technical becomes almost not important, right? If you only
Yeah.
have a dozen pages, a couple dozen pages, like you can solve those problems. When I say not important, I mean like you solve them at the beginning within a month or two, but then it shouldn't be a problem over the course of 12 months. Because if I work with KPMG, I have to spend 12 months just fixing one problem, because it has to get approvals, and
Oh
there is
no.
like 50 stakeholders to go through just to
Yeah.
put a check mark next to something that you want to do. And so the timelines are just so much longer. But on a small size business, you can get approvals in the same day, and then you go and you solve that problem, whether that's indexing issues, whether it's JavaScript or whatever it might be that's not working well for SEO. As long as you solve that, the rest is all about link building and all about content. All right, so lots of link building because we have to build that authority, and lots of content because we have to have content for us to rank. And so really depends on what size, not even a business, but the size of the
Hmm.
website that you are working with, where they're at in order to prioritize links, content, or technical. And then your strategy will be just customized based on that. That's how I view it, and most of the time it lines up quite well, and it
Hmm.
works that way. Obviously, if a business raised $100 million and they have a brand new website, it is a big business technically, but it's not a big website. You still apply small website SEO to it, which is
I
lots of
see.
links, lots of content. Yeah.
Okay, that's very interesting. So you look at the size of the website
Yeah.
almost independently to the size of a business. So
100%.
because a
Yeah.
business is huge doesn't mean their website is any significant size. S-
Yeah, because you can work. It can be a second or third time founder, right? And they can raise a ton of money because of their reputation or prior exits, and so they can bring a ton of funding to the business already, and they know it's going to be a successful business based on their past history. So it is already kind of a big business in terms of its evaluation,
yeah.
but the website might just be brand new. Right.
Uh-huh.
So we've worked with some of those businesses in the past. And, for us, it's more of a question, do you have the budget? Because usually you don't want to end up in a situation where the business is small and the website is small, because then it's a grind. And I know that because I have a
Mm,
portfolio of my own small businesses. And it's a brand new website and a brand new business, and it's a grind. You have to put a lot of effort into link building. You have to put a lot of effort into content, and just keep stacking that over the long term. But if you can shortcut it with huge budgets, anything is possible. Like you'll do PR, you'll create good quality content, you'll invest into video, and then you'll utilize all the other channels to support SEO, or to utilize whatever you create for SEO, you'll use it in other channels to maximize the ROI from that content, and then it flows nicely from there.
okay. So when you're large and we're talking about
Uh-huh.
multinational corporation,
Okay.
all you really care about is technical. You try to
Well,
game the system, right?
technical and content, because you need still to create content for the keywords you're trying to rank for, right? if you're a really big business, maybe, or big enterprise, you already probably have a ton of articles. It's then
Mm-hmm.
it becomes about optimizing that content. Like, we'll look at it and we'll map a keyword to it and be like, okay, what do we need to change? What do we need to update? And then you go through 6 months of legal approval just to change one word on a page.
Oh no, that sounds so painful. Oh my god.
It is painful, but that's what large enterprise agencies, like SEO agencies that work with large enterprise clients, go through. Like, it's long approval process, and you deal with legal teams. Like, you work with a legal just to get one word change, and they're like, I don't know, can we use another word? It's like, no, we're trying to rank here, and so there's a
Wow.
lot of stuff that goes into it. Yeah, but technical is a big part. There's going to be always technical issues there on some custom frameworks that they're built on, and so you're working with like 50 stakeholders just on the technology side, and so yeah, it's a lot of stuff like that.
And then if we go down, kind of
Yeah,
middle size, you said HubSpot, which is I assume a few thousands of employees.
yeah.
Um, Link building and content. So you try
Content,
to
some link
get
building, yes.
okay, content
Content,
still a
some link building.
priority, but try to get people link back to you. Okay.
Yep. You will try to get links back to particular articles, right? You can do that via different means. Depending on what risk appetite you have, you might do guest posts, right? So your team might do guest posts, so basically publishing content on someone else's website, and then they link back to you, to your
Mm-hmm.
article.
Mm-hmm.
You might do niche edits, which means that you find an existing article somewhere else, and then you ask them to add a link back to yours into the existing article. So they
Mm-hmm.
just plug in an edit into it, a link into it. You can, you can do digital PR, right? So that could be running a campaign, or let's say you create a whole new page, a study, and then you basically send emails to journalists saying, hey, we asked 1,000 of our customers about what they think is going to happen in 2025 to the SaaS industry, right? And then you
Mm.
have stats and numbers in it, and journalists are like, hey, HubSpot did this and this research, check it out, here's a link, right? And so then you go from there. There is also something that's kind of part of digital PR, which is Haro link building, right? Help a reporter out. It's no longer in existence, but the name is still used,
Yeah.
where you basically go and you respond. It's more like a responsive approach, or yeah, response, not proactive, but you're responding to someone else's question, a journalist question, and
Mm-hmm.
then you give them a quote, and then they link back to your site as a result of that. Works really well for us too. We do a lot of that. Our clients love to see themselves being featured in those, in those articles on Entrepreneur and Forbes.
I
And
bet.
we always recommend them, like, okay, so we got you published on HubSpot or Entrepreneur or Forbes. Why don't you create a LinkedIn post about it? Right, then they'll use the same pitch, and they'll be like, here's what I just wrote for Entrepreneur, and they quoted me, and that gives you a greater reach on LinkedIn now. So there starts to come in a bit more
Mm.
comments, and you start to build up some personal relationships with folks in your LinkedIn profile. So I never think about SEO as like, just do one thing for SEO and forget about everything else. I think there's an opportunity to use whatever you're doing for SEO elsewhere. Yeah.
It sounds like you also have to be creative about it and just approach it.
100%.
Yeah, so it sounds fun, really.
That I got into SEO because of my engineering background. It was easiest to get in, and so for me it was like, oh, not very creative person, and more analytical, more left
Yeah.
brain driven. And I was like, SEO makes sense. I can spend some time doing technical stuff. And I worked for agencies like Such and Sapien Razorfish, where it was enterprise clients. We were solving technical problems, right? With
Mm-hmm.
largely with clients, and then some content and whatnot. And then I really got into learning from other teams, like paid advertising team and social media teams and content teams, and learning that right side of the brain. And I was like, marketing in general is interesting, and as a business you should always try to diversify as much as you can, just to make sure that you're building a true brand. And I think that's something you'll notice now if you watch a lot of YouTube videos about SEO, or read posts anywhere about SEO. With the rise of AI, what's happening is that we're starting to realize that, back in the day we could build more links and we can create content and we could manipulate Google for rankings. The better AI gets, the more sources of information or signals it's going to start to analyze,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's going to start to look not just at what links you have or what content you have on your page. It's going to start to look at what reviews do you have on G2, what is the sentiment from those reviews? What reviews do you have on Trustpilot, Trust Radius, Google Business Profile, on social media? Did you post something on Twitter? Does this AI have a direct API with X or Twitter, right? Can we pull some information from that? And so what's happening is that if we get to a point where AI is truly analyzing those different signals, then it's all SEO becomes about brand. You
It
have to
does.
build a brand
Yeah.
because you have to be now everywhere. You have to be omni-channel, right? And that's where I actually I kind of look forward to, is because I think that that focus, too much of a focus on just links and content, it still will work. No, it still works now, but I think it makes it more interesting where now you have to focus on doing something that's outside of just manipulating content, and doing, now you have to work, on reviews and getting your customers to have a good experience and leaving those reviews and going more omni-channel as a result. Yeah.
I'm really glad you mentioned Harrow. We used Harrow extensively, and we got
Okay.
ourselves featured on
Yeah.
Hotjar, LifeWire, a few others. It's actually pretty neat. It was pretty neat. Uh,
Yeah.
what are the alternatives right now? Do you know? What else could we use?
Yeah, we build hundreds of huddle links a month for clients, and right now we're using Quoted,
Oh,
QWOTED,
that rings a bell.
Quoted.com.
Yeah.
Yep, it's a good platform, not cheap. You pay quite a bit to have access to it, but you will see Go banking rates there. Very good website for finance queries. You will see Forbes and entrepreneurs there. HubSpot, featured.com, another one that's an option. Uh, it's they're getting a little sketchy.
Oh,
they're
what do you
they're
mean?
starting. So they build a bunch of these websites of their own. I would call them PBNs, but they probably would not like that name. But they build a bunch of their own websites like healthnews.io, right? And then what they do is that they basically create a query in feature.com from themselves, and they'll be like, I'm looking for people to contribute on this health related question. And then you spend time writing this pitch, and then it gets featured on healthnews.io, which doesn't have any authority. It's not a journalist website. It's not nothing. It's like there's just
No
no
one
value
knows it.
from it,
Yeah.
to be honest. Yeah. And so we're starting to notice that there are just a lot of pitches that are coming through these low quality sites that they own. You actually go into that about us page and it says this website is owned by Featured. And we're like, you know what? We're not going to waste our time. But there are still good journalist publications on Featured. So you just have to be very picky. Don't pitch to everything. Just pick the ones that are good, like HubSpot and whatnot, and go there. So quoted, Featured. There is sometimes folks use Source Bottle, I think it's called. So
Huh.
that one is still around. Help a B2B writer is actually a pretty good one if you are in web development, marketing, anything digital. There's actually quite a few questions that come through just related to SEO and web design and
Hmm.
AI and stuff like that. So that's a good alternative for marketing part types of links or keywords or queries. What else do we use there? Those would be the biggest one. And then the original founder of Haro, he went and he created Hero, and then he renamed it into something else. So there is something else that's brewing in
I'll
the
follow
background
that
somewhere.
trail. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, so he was very upset that Haro got shut down, and then they rebranded into Connectively, and then they failed to make Connectively work. I
Oh.
think it was Cision who owned it, and so they shut down Connectively from December 9, which is in 4 days. They're going to shut down that one, but we never really used Connectively much because we just didn't find much value from it, to be honest with you. So, yeah, lots of different platforms, more and more popping in every day. But the goal is just to go into all of them, create an account, and then just prospect and see what kind of journalists are where. And then after a month or two, you'll figure it out. Basically, where you want to put most of your budget into.
My biggest issue with Harrow was the relevancy of questions of pitches. It was
Yeah,
very difficult to find one that I would actually want to feature in. And I'm not
yeah,
picky. I'm not like holding anything against any particular publication. It's
yeah,
just that I wouldn't know what to say. Even though I knew I signed up for a particular category, those
yeah,
pitches were just not relevant to me. So hopefully
yeah,
those other platforms like Quoted or Help a B2B Writer are better suited for, I guess, web design, which is my world. I will definitely take a look. Uh,
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
speak.
And
Hmm?
Sometimes, so we always try to stay kind of in a niche that client has, but if we know that the client has expertise in something related to that niche, we might go outside of it and grab some opportunities there, right? So you just have, you kind of have to see like, okay, maybe, if I'm talking about web design, but then they ask a question about AI, there's still an angle you can take with answering an AI question but pivoting it back to website, right? So they might approve that because you're still answering the main question that they had, but you're answering it
Hmm.
from your point of view as a web designer.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
We mentioned creating content, obviously, for, to be honest, any stage company. Like content is the king here.
Yeah.
When you establish a keyword that you want to rank for, do you have any maybe tips or frameworks that you use to write content that actually hits the mark on that keyword? Do you have any particular, you know, scale to gauge the progress or performance of content that you're creating?
Yeah. So content has become a bit of a commodity. Written text has become a bit of a commodity these days
Right.
with AI, right? So um, I actually feel it firsthand because I still like human written content and I hire writers. And so when I go and I interview writers, I'll see in a resume that they worked for a company in the past. I'll be like, what happened here? And they're like, I got let go because they started using AI. Right. So you can
Oh my
see, you
god.
can find really good writers right now everywhere that just don't have jobs because AI just took those jobs away. And so, what we do is the ways that our process works. One, we work with companies where we don't want to take a liability on our hands. Where if we create AI content and then the website for whatever reason, Google says it likes any content, it
Hmm.
says so, right? But then one day it changes the algo and it's like I don't like the AI content, and if they can't even figure it out. But if they do, like we don't want to have a liability of it. So we want to make sure that our clients know that it's 100% human written.
Hmm.
And so which means that what the way that process works is that we always write for the user first. So we'll write in a way that sounds good, it's really in-depth research. We'll still use AI tool for original research if we need
Hmm.
to, like to AI tools are fantastic for taking a huge amount of information and digesting it down and then just giving you main points, summaries, figuring out new topics, figuring out the nuances, and then you take that information and you start to write your own kind of perspective on it. But everything that we write is 100% human written. What we do is we use tools like Surfer SEO or Page Optimizer Pro.
Hmm.
Page Optimizer Pro is what you use the most. I would recommend if anyone is on a budget or they want to kind of look at more scalable solution, I would say pricing on Page Optimizer Pro is better. But what that tool will do is that it will basically tell you how many words you need to have on a page based on, let's say, the top 10, top three competitors for that keyword that you're trying to write for. So it will give you the links, and then it will tell you how many times you need to mention different variations of the keyword based on what's happening on the first page of Google. Right. So already gives you guidance so that you're not guessing what is the keyword density, how many times to mention this versus that. Do I need variations? Do I need LSIs? So everything gets mentioned in everything is given to you within the tool itself. And then what we do is we write for the user, but we make sure that the keywords are in it. And sometimes my guys will be back and they'll be like, this tool tells me to write 2,500, but I'm at 1,900 and starts to feel fluffy. And we're like,
Yeah.
okay, don't write any more. Stop.
Okay.
Right. Make sure that it's at 1,900, but it's a solid article and there's
Yeah.
solid information, solid in research. Let's publish it. Right. We publish it and then we monitor it and then we see where's the rankings is moving in which direction. And then if we feel like, oh, we got stuck at certain point, then we revisit it and we try to figure out, do we need to add extra, right? So
Uh-huh.
SEO is not the process of write an article, publish it and forget it. SEO is iterative process. You publish it, you write something, you publish it, then you watch how it trends. Then when you start to see that it's flat plateaus, stops growing in rankings, then you come back, you optimize again, then you monitor, then you see where it's moving. It's moving up. Great. Can we do more? Optimize, keep improving, optimize, keep improving, and you keep doing it over and over again. So
Iterations,
that's what,
basically. Yeah.
yeah. And like when we write 30,000, 60,000 words a month for a client, what happens is that we'll write, let's say, 10 articles. And then when we write the 11th one, we go back to previous 10 and we try to figure out, is there opportunity to internally link to the 11th? So you constantly revisiting your old stuff in order to publish new stuff. that's how SEO is, we approach SEO, is because in our opinion is that it's not just about publishing new stuff all the time, like, oh, here's a new article, isn't it's also about looking at what do you have in your library already, and how can we link to the new article, is there a natural placement there, and then keep improving and interlinking and building that kind of topical map across all the content. But you should never stop optimizing your content. It's just, it keeps the library keeps going, and so the amount of work keeps growing as a result of
Yeah,
that when it comes to optimizing that content. And you sometimes you will have to take your articles that you wrote 6 months ago, and you'll have to rerun the tools to see if it's still relevant, because algo might have changed, and so the results might have shifted, and as a result the place, the keywords, the density might have changed, and so you have to go and redo it slightly to make sure that it still has a chance to rank, right? So
man, it sounds like a proper full-time job. I mean, no wonder people search for
yeah,
you and hire you for the job. It's just look. I'm a founder of a company. I have no time for this. What would you say
yeah,
to a person like me? Like, where should I focus first? At least, like, with a few hours a week.
yeah.
Help me.
Yeah. I'm a strong so at the beginning of my career I was like, I want to learn everything, and I
Yeah.
think it's okay at the beginning to try to learn everything, because it gives you a really good grounding in kind of understanding what goes into different things. Like, well, I want to learn a bit about paid advertising, and you start to get exposed to paid advertising, and then you learn about SEO and content, and you're like, you start to connect the pieces and how those different disciplines connect to each other. But over time, as the business grows, you have to figure out a lane and stay in it, and then find specialists to do the rest,
Mm,
right? So if your business benefits from SEO, I think a great idea is to either have someone doing it full time for you in-house, or to have an agency do it for you full time externally, right? There are pros and cons to both solutions, right? So in-house talent, in my opinion, is very hard to find. So the reason why I'm saying it is because it tends to be expensive. Really good SEOs, they either run their own thing already, right? And so they don't want to work in house,
yeah.
or they're really good and they're really expensive. So it's going to be a big investment, which is why going with the agency route is a pro of running with going with the agencies, because you've got good talent. They spend the time training the talent, right? That's what agencies do. With a lot of time just training, but you're getting it at a discount because the cost is distributed across many different clients, right? So now you don't have to hire someone for 120, $150,000 a year, let's say an SEO salary in-house. You can hire an agency for 60, $80,000 a year, but you're getting yourself 5, 6 people working in the background, because the cost is the same idea probably with web development agencies is similar too. And so, yeah, as a founder, if you have a knack for writing, you should 100% write. But
Hmm.
if you want to see real benefit from SEO, I think there needs to be a content strategy in place where someone creates content on an ongoing basis, and that content is built for the purposes of SEO or email, or like there has to be set expectations for what this content is supposed to do.
So the answer to my
That would be my
question is
recommendation.
basically delegate. Just
Delegate.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah. No, that's
that's right.
perfect. I mean, I kind of expected that answer, but at some point, um, you have to. I mean, especially as a small business owner, you have
Yeah.
to be realistic about the budgets, right? I mean,
Yeah.
60, 80K for some companies just for SEO, that's that's a huge expense. I work with
Could, yeah.
early stage startups, and there's
Yep.
no way they would dish out this kind of money just for SEO.
But
Um,
it has to attach back to ROI, right? You're not spending money on just fluff content. You have to kind of ask yourself a question: if we do invest 60K, what are we going to increase our lead volume, right? Is there going to be some kind of a return in
yeah,
6 to 12 months? Obviously, in SEO, it's hard to promise returns, just because, let's say 2024 was nightmare year for SEO. I'll be honest with you. I've talked to quite a few guys who who exited SEO industry. It was a hard year because Google's algorithm has become difficult to work with. Like in 2023, you would make things before October 2023. You would make a change, and you would literally see in Google Search Console Google responding. It would move up or it would move down based on your
wow.
change, and you can change thing again, and you would move again in the right direction. In 2024, it's like beating your head against a wall. You make a change that supposed to work, and Google is not responding. There's no feedback. It's just
So
not
feedback
moving
loop is
in
just doesn't exist.
because Google messed up. Like they did this whole helpful content update back in October 2023, and it's just we wiped out so many
Oh my
positive
god.
signals, I think, in within the algorithms that just used to work, and it's just gone worse now. So I'll give you an example. We have a portfolio of our own websites. We launch websites all the time, sometimes for test purposes, sometimes because we want to have extra, affiliate income or lead gen businesses that we run. And so we had this affiliate website where it was, I have a business partner who is really passionate about the topic. And so we created content. And that content, the articles were growing in rankings. And then November 2023 rolls around, drops,
Okay.
stays flat. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. What happened? And then everybody's like, helpful content update, wiped out a lot of small publishers, a lot of, good content went down in rankings, traffic is nearly zero. I was like, all right, I'm not going to do anything to the website because it's just a hobby in a way. It wasn't making a lot of money. And we didn't publish any new content. We maybe published one or two articles. We didn't optimize any of our pages more than what we did in the past.
Hmm.
No traffic, no traffic until August. In August, traffic starts to go back up and it keeps climbing back up. We
Okay.
changed nothing. Didn't change the CMS, did not change the URLs, did not optimize old articles, did not add any new images, no nothing. It just went back up. Affiliate income was going up, went down, now goes back up. What happened? Google. It just
Google
changed the
happened.
algorithm.
Yeah.
That's it. Like if you live and die by Google traffic, I don't think you have a business. I'll be honest.
Okay.
That's why diversification is so important. You have to be elsewhere. You have to have referrals. You have to have social media. You have to have podcasts, diversify into video. You need what true brands have is omni-channel presence, right? So my microphone
It's okay.
is being difficult. Omni-channel presence because, like I saw just from that one example, 1 year of no traffic whatsoever because Google decided so. Like single digit
Wow.
clicks,
Oh
and
my
then it
god.
climbs back up for no reason in August.
That's
We didn't
disgusting.
change. Yeah, it is disgusting, and it was scary, and in a way, it was a wake up call. And I was like, okay, so it's just not how we want to operate. I've always been a big proponent of building brands. Like if you can build a brand, and so now we're just doubling down on that. Like we want to go more into podcasting, just like you're doing. We want to do more video, and I think as a founder for you, right, you're asking a question of like, how can I create so much content? I think a better idea for a founder is to create video content, which is what you're
Oh, I
doing.
love video content. It's so good.
Video is going to be
Oh
huge. Video
man.
is huge, and I think it's just such a good use of time. And then when it comes to written content, you outsource that. You hire someone or you delegate that to someone else, and you let them handle that part.
Hmm.
But if you have to do something yourself, I would say video is just much better ROI.
Uh, the only part I would probably not necessarily argue, just maybe
Yeah.
comment on is that as a founder, I can't imagine anyone writing in my name on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
But other
Yeah.
than that, I mean, the
Right.
brand has a voice, right? Has the way of being, I guess,
Yep.
in quotes. So
Yep.
you can find a writer and train them on how to be Nerd Cow, how to be, any brand, and
Yeah.
therefore, kind of blend in with the rest of the content that's been published before they came on board. So I
Yeah.
guess that would be my only caveat. That I will be always the person that writes on LinkedIn. I can't imagine ghostwriting as a founder
I
at
th-
least.
I think LinkedIn is a bit of a different beast, right? So LinkedIn, I think, yeah, you want to be as much in the process yourself as possible,
Hmm.
just because the level of nuance that you have about your own business is it's hard to replicate that as a ghostwriter. So we're testing something. We as an SEO agency, we started in SEO, but now we do paid advertising. We're looking into PR just because we understand that SEO is going to be more than just SEO, the old SEO. Now you
Hmm.
have to have all those additional services, and we're dabbing into LinkedIn. And when we work with clients, we'll draft a copy with them. But the way that the process works is that we'll interview the client at the beginning of the discovery stage. We'll record the video and we'll ask them like a million questions and get the idea of how they communicate, how they talk, what do they say, how do they answer those particular
Oh
questions.
wow.
And then you try to integrate that into the copy in their voice, in their own thoughts, their own words, because now you have it on video. You try to integrate that into the LinkedIn post. It's never going to be 100% perfect, but you will have a first draft
that sounds like them, and then you give it to them to review, and then they change things that they need to. But it's not like a 90% change, it's just 10-15% here and there, but it sounds like them because everything is coming off of that video. that's
Yeah.
that's a process that works. And we had some clients who had used the ghostwriters, and those ghostwriters would be writing about generic topic about web design, and clients would be like, I don't nobody cares about that. They want to know something that's like the real gist of the being in
Yeah.
a
From
business,
the
right?
trenches.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
what resonates with the audience on LinkedIn.
True.
And so the only way to get that for us is basically to interview the actual person before you write on behalf of that person.
I
And
get
so
it.
some ghostwriting is doable, just requires a lot of research and work. Yeah.
I believe you when you say this, because when I talk to ChatGPT and
Yeah.
I request that it writes in my voice, in the way I
Uh-huh.
write, it actually quite nails it, because now it has memory, right? It
Yep.
remembers all the chats that I've had it in the past, and it kind
Yeah.
of can use my prompts to be me,
Yeah.
you know? So,
Yeah. If you feed it enough of your own voice, yeah.
exactly. I tend to write short sentences. They're not always grammatically correct, because for example, I don't always start sentence with I or
Okay.
he. I
Yep.
just do been doing that.
Yep.
I just that's how I talk, and I want to write the same way.
Yeah.
And so ChatGPT has to purposefully sacrifice, the proper way of writing just to be
Yeah.
me, and it does actually pretty well. It's not, again, as you said, not always brilliant, but it's
Yeah.
it's 90% there, which is quite impressive, to be honest, for a bot. It's a bunch of code replicating me.
Yeah.
If you think about it, that's pretty great.
Yeah, it's not true AI. It's just it's predicting the next word. It calculates the
Yes.
likelihood of that word
Yeah.
being correct. And so yeah, it's not true AI, but
That's
it
true.
it, it
Yeah.
it does fairly good job. I'll yes, do admit to that. The problems start to get when you have to write long form content for blogs, right?
Mm.
2,000, 3,000. It starts to get repetitive. And so I would never recommend anyone to take ChatGPT unedited and publish on a
And just
website.
yeah,
I
no, no, no. That
know
would be insane.
human
Yeah,
touch has to be in it. But like
absolutely.
if you something interesting that happens in the agency world is that if you work with those larger clients, enterprise clients, they actually have they have sections in a contract where they basically they tell you to never use AI. Right. So there's
What?
gonna be there's going to be a point where it says like you as an agency you're not allowed to use AI for any of the work that you do for us, essentially in a legal language. The reason why is because they're trying to make sure that they don't get sued for any violation of IP that might come as a result of your AI usage, right?
Okay.
Because
Always the
it,
legal reason.
yeah, they don't want you to do that. And the other thing is probably if they want to use AI, they could use it themselves, right? So
That's
they're
fair.
probably
Yeah.
looking for more creative stuff on your end to come out as a human. That's what they pay you
Yeah.
premium buck for. But yeah, a lot of companies are doing that now on the enterprise level as a legal protection and just something to watch out for. Yeah.
Uh, Final question before we move to lead gen, which is again back to the conversation of short term, long term gains. Uh, w- what do you think of, because you spoke about content writing and the body text, but what about title and meta stuff as well? How do you work with those? How do you nail them?
Yeah, so I always kind of separate, I'll say the most important thing on a page when you just look at the page is going to be
Yeah.
your H1 heading. Right? So
Yes.
H1 heading is the most important heading. That should be only one on a page, one H1, and that's where you want to make sure that your keyword is included. Now that can be a variation of the keyword. You don't have to say best accounting software. You can say
Oh,
that's a
really?
keyword you're
Okay.
trying to rank for. You
Okay.
can be like top rated keyword accounting software for a small business, whatever it might be. So you can create a variation,
Hmm.
and then the rest was a kind of content goes after that. H2s important, but then you have body copy following the H2s, and then you have H3s that become less important, much less H4s, and so on. But what's not visible on the page is a title and meta description. That's what you see on in a code, and then you
Yeah.
see on the search engine result pages. Title is very important to include the keyword, and we like to get the keyword as close to the beginning of the title as we can. Right, so
Mm.
we will make sure is we're trying to rank for accounting software. We'll say accounting software at the beginning of the title, and then for X, Y, and Z.
Okay.
Or let's say, you know, what would be a keyword? Inventory management, right? The ultimate guide. So we'll mention the keyword at the beginning, and then the rest afterwards. So we'll do a bit of the, trickery here and there just to get to see how Google responds.
Mhm.
So those are very important to us. H1's titles, meta description. Google can choose to use yours, can ignore it. We still like to give them something that's optimized around our term, our keyword. And so we'll still try to make sure that the keyword is in the front as well at the beginning, as close to the beginning as possible.
Mhm.
It's not too long. Otherwise, Google might just go through the rest of your copy and pick something that's more relevant or they
Mm.
think is more relevant. But you don't really have full control over meta description. Sometimes they'll put something in that they think is better based on click-through rates and whatnot. And so if that's what happens, then that's what happens. So those will be more like tactical on-page stuff, but none of that is ever permanent. You have to come back and you have to change things again just to see how Google responds. And that's what I mean by this year being hard, is that we
Mhm.
change things and we see nothing, no feedback. It's like,
Wow.
come on, Google, give me something. Move. Yeah. And sometimes you're moving down. It happens. There's a page starts moving down the rankings, and you'll do all the best things possible to it, and
Yeah.
it's just
You don't know why.
used to work, and it doesn't. It just keeps going down. And we did a funny thing. We're like, okay, well, this article seems like it's optimized. Screw it. Let's just
Okay.
rewrite the whole 3,000 words. And so then we put a new writer in place, rewrote the whole thing, published it, and guess what? It just went straight up in rankings in Google Search Console. The
Okay.
position, average
Oh
position, just
wow.
shoot up. And I'm like, so Google, it's not even that Google cared whether there's keywords in a page or whether it's the right, word count. It just wanted something fresh. And so, so we pasted something fresh, still
I
optimized for it, and it just
see.
shot up straight to the first page. And I was like, interesting. And we see that happening quite a lot in this year. Is that you do a lot of work on existing old content, not moving around, not moving up quite a bit as much as you used to. You publish brand new article, shoot straight up. As long as it's well done and good SEO is done on it, go straight up. Like you can see traffic just keeps climbing. The old stuff, it just keeps struggling. And I was like, well, do we have to now go and rewrite everything? Like
Yeah.
that's essentially the mindset that we have now. It's like, well, if we can't move the needle by making small changes, we now have to move the needle by just rewriting the whole thing. And so it's a heavier lift, but my theory here, a hypothesis, not data backed, didn't do any study on it, so take it with a word of caution. But I think that a Google is feeding a lot of the data to AI, and they're trying to feed a lot of fresh data. And so when you rewrite stuff, they assume that it's new and fresh, and it just has more likelihood to be picked up. I don't know,
Mhm.
somehow. And so that helps with rankings. We ran we ran tests on a few articles like that, quite a few. Just go straight up in rankings when it's freshly rewritten, and that's what we're doing now. Yeah.
It's almost like content has some kind of expiry date on it. It just feels like it.
You know what? As a web designer, you probably created blogs where they'll have dates in the articles, right?
Yes.
That says
Yes.
published or updated.
Yes.
We have a client, the same articles as before. They had dates in the articles. The same articles as before. The only thing we changed was we updated the layout of the actual articles, how they look. So
Okay.
it's got a refreshed UX, UI, and looks
Mhm.
better layout. And then what we did is that instead of having published date, we put updated date, right? And so when we update them recently, that date is going to get picked up instead of the one that was published
Yes.
originally. Guess what? The blog went up 250% in traffic.
You're fucking kidding me, really?
That's it. Google picked up on a, I would say, code change that it's fresh, and then the
And
date
the date.
change.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's straight up 250%, and it's
I,
still
I,
holding.
I
It's
was to
holding for a
I
couple
was to
months.
ask you if when you, let's say you brought the example of actually rewriting the whole thing. Uh, I was
Yeah.
going to ask you if you actually change the publish date to now, or you do leave it in the past. Um,
So we did both tests. We changed the publish date. It didn't move the needle as much. We rewrote the whole thing. It moves the needle more. And changed the date as well. So
and
I
change the
don't
date.
know.
Okay.
Like we just have to run more tests, but it's hard to be like, hey, client, let us take 3 months just to run some tests and not see results.
Yeah.
you know,
Oh my
You-
god.
if you see something, you just want to go ham hard on it. And but what's happening is that right now we have another client that's refreshing their blog, and so if we refresh the blog, the code goes live, and then I see 250% increase, I'll go to every client and be like, let's refresh the blog. Yeah, maybe it's not the content, maybe it's just the dates changes and the code just feels fresh. Just whatever. Let's just go all in. This year has been it's been interesting.
You're really having fun over there. Oh my god.
Not really stressed. It's been the hardest year. I still have all my hair, I think.
Yeah.
But getting close to a point where it's tough. But some SEOs, we didn't do it as drastically as others. What they would do is they would take the blog and they would change the URL structure. I don't like doing it because as soon as you change the URL, everything changes, because all those external links you got to your old articles, to old URLs, now they have to pass through 301s. I just feel like that's too drastic. But they say that the traffic starts to go up. Some even change domain names, like it's small project websites. They get hit by an update for no reason. They change the domain and then they see the same articles basically going up in rankings, right? And so we don't want to do that on client websites. Obviously, client cannot move to a whole new domain. Not reasonable to ask for that. But what we've seen is basically, updates, the complete refresh of the article works. Changing update dates and some of the code on a page seems to work, even if you don't touch the content itself. And so now we just have to figure out that delta. Where is it really that's making a difference?
Yeah.
But the problem is that the algorithm is also changing. Right, they had this November update just released that fixed some of our problems on our old stuff where we didn't touch anything and rankings keep going up. So I'm like, I don't know if we're gonna do this new stuff with the Google going back to the old stuff. It's like, where are we gonna be now? Reverting to better results. So
there's just so many variables, you don't know what works, what doesn't. Right? It's just such a multi-level, complicated landscape that you literally have to have. You have to be making one change at a time.
Yeah.
Because if you make 2, 3, 10, you don't know what actually helped, and you can't replicate the success elsewhere.
And even if you do one change, it's not like it's a single variable test, because something else on the website might be happening. There might be extra links coming through. Someone ran a brand awareness campaign that generated a ton of traffic and you're not aware of it, and then your rankings go up as a result.
Or
of
Google
something
just
happening.
breaks the algo.
Yeah, or Google breaks their algo, or they fix the algo. And it's impossible to run the single variable test on large websites. Some folks do them on like tiny sites with lower MIPSums and whatnot. Fair game. But on the large sites with large number of variables happening at the same time, I think it's impossible. Yeah.
Let's for the final thought of the conversation, let's slightly move towards lead generation. Because as you said, SEO has to tie back to ROI. It has to bring money, obviously.
Yeah.
I will just speak from my own experience. We have almost no conversion from our blog at all. So if, for example, in the sidebar, we could have book an audit with us, because the blog post is about web design, conversion rate, and what kind of components make a difference, or whatever, like any kind of educative content. And in the sidebar, we would invite people to click and book audit with us. There's almost no engagement. How do you funnel that SEO success into lead generation? At what point you make pivot? What are the tricks or tactics that you battle tested for your clients?
Yeah, so let's go back to that what we started with the conversation, which is keywords and funnel, stages of the funnel, right? So the reason why we look at the keywords and then break them up into the funnel is not just to understand what type of content we create, but also to set expectations with the client. If we're creating a bunch of top of the funnel content, we tell client right away is that there's two purposes we're doing it for. One, obviously, to bring more traffic. However, that traffic is going to probably convert at less than 1%. It's top of the funnel. Okay. Wow. It's the likelihood of that translating into an actual purchase is very low. However, second reason why we're doing it is because we're creating topical authority on that particular topic, right? So let's say WordPress development. So we need that content in order for Google to treat us as an authority on it. And so it helps us with internal linking, because internally from those articles, we'll also link to your product pages or your service pages where you do, let's say, website audit, right? And you're WordPress website audit services, for example. We can mention it in a blog article and then link to your service page that talks about website WordPress audit services. And so it gives us opportunities to pass some of that juice over to your bottom of the funnel pages. But
Okay.
setting expectation is the most important thing in our mind, because that's where a lot of the budget goes. And so when we tell them it's not going to convert it's going to convert at less than 1%, they're going to be obviously wondering, what do we do then with that? So then you have to figure out, do you have something else that you can offer to the audience that's not product aware and not problem aware, the top of the funnel traffic? Can you get them into the email? Can you get them into some kind of a subscription for a, let's say, newsletter where you talk about, if this is how to set up your blog, right, or how to set up
Mm-hmm.
your WordPress blog, do you have a newsletter subscription where you walk them through 10 steps to get your blog done in WordPress, right? And you will send it out in the next 10 weeks or 5 weeks, 2 emails a week.
Some
And
kind of
then at
email
the end,
course.
yeah, and then they'll be like, oh, you know what? Tomasz helped me set up my blog, or he at least tried to help me. And I realized that I'm not good at it. And then when they hit that point, you will have an email, an option to do service with you, consulting call or something else. So we try to nurture the top of the funnel audience outside of the blog somewhere else, whether it's an email, whether it's social media, whatever it might be. You need to take it out of the expectation should not be buy my product. It's just not going to happen. It's just the
Mm-hmm.
likelihood of that is so low. It's less than 1% based on what we see. And so I always recommend to have some kind of lead magnet, some have educational content, informational content that you can, push through email. And then when you grab those emails, you also can do remarketing and retargeting and all sorts of things, right? So there's a lot of opportunities in omni-channel approach outside of SEO. And so, yeah, never look at that top of the funnel content as a driver of conversions. Look at it as an opportunity to create an audience and take some of that and then nurture it towards middle of the funnel and then bottom of the funnel. As well as a business owner, you can send them a sequence of emails and you can have affiliate links there, right? So as they subscribe to, or as they start to build that WordPress blog of their own, they'll probably need plugins. They'll probably need some kind of tools for which you can go and sign up and gives them an affiliate link and as part of that email, and then you're making some recurring income on that part. So it's going to be small, but it might grow over time as your blog grows, your email list grows, and then your affiliate commissions as well as consulting calls might grow as a result of that as well. But bottom of the funnel, 100% expectation is to convert. If someone is searching for WordPress web development consulting, we want that to result in a conversion, right? Whether it's 5, 10, 15, 20% conversion rate, that will depend. But that traffic, the intent is to find a service. And so the expectation is for us to convert that traffic into potential lead.
I like
Make sense?
how this all comes together. Like so we started the conversation at a very high level, and we now reach the bottom of the funnel, and this transition of a person who's like a
Yeah.
complete stranger to your brand to buying the
Yep.
service, and what kind of leverage SEO provides to make that happen is just crazy. It
Yep.
almost feels me makes me guilty that I haven't been paying that attention to SEO as a founder, because we are purely
Yeah.
working of word of mouth and social media. And I know
Yeah.
you consider all of that part of brand, which is the future of SEO. But
Yeah.
strictly speaking of SEO, blog, it's not something that we do. We stopped that probably like 12 months
Yeah.
ago. But now you make me want to kind of go back to it, revisit that.
As long as you approach SEO as part of larger marketing
Yeah.
effort, 100% there is no reason not to invest into it. Because if you can take that top of the funnel content and you can do or traffic and you can do something with it,
Hmm.
right? That's when you get the ROI from it. But you'll have to invest even more into email. You'll have to invest even more into some kind of a course. Maybe it's free course or whatever it might be, right? So you'll just have to be creative around that.
Yeah.
But it's 100% something that with how we approach any client work is basically telling client, hey, we know this is not going to result in conversion. Straight up, honest conversation, not going to drive conversions. Please don't
Hmm.
expect that.
Hmm.
12 months from now, you can't come back to me and be like, we created 150,000 words of content and it doesn't drive conversions. Yes, we know. We need you to help us with lead modeling, with some kind of email nurturing sequence, because that traffic is just too cold. We
Yeah.
need to warm it up, bring it into the middle, and then make it hot by bringing it to the bottom and getting it ready to buy. right? And there's a lot of this mindset around, well, if we create all this blog content, it's going to create brand awareness. I don't know the last times that I read an article and I was like, I'm brand aware. I love this brand. It's like, it's
Oh,
just an article.
enlightening moment. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God, XYZ blog changed my life. No, it doesn't happen like that. It happens
No.
when they came to your blog and then something else happened. You gave them something else to build a relationship with you. Email, social media, whatever it might be, video that they watched in that content. You had some kind of personal touch point that then contributed to them being aware of your brand. Just text is not it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It has to be something else, something personal, something custom to them, email sequence, something solving their problem beyond just reading a blog. And that's where the real brand awareness starts to happen, in my opinion.
I mean, just look how you, as in not necessarily you, Scott, but
Yeah.
like you as a person, browse internet, how you buy, how you make a decision, and your customers, they're doing the same. Like,
Yeah.
no one reads a blog about setting up WordPress and then immediately buys the plugin which
Yeah.
advertised that blog, right? It
Yeah.
just doesn't happen. You're absolutely right. So just be grounded in reality, I guess, about it. Don't go hoping for the sky when all you can get is a little stick on the ground. Just take it easy.
Yeah, and a lot of times you'll see in the software industries that people will find your blog and they might get exposed to your software and then they'll be like XYZ software reviews. They go on Google and they look for reviews, right? So now you're, as a brand, you're like, do you have any reviews? Did you put any effort in building up those
Yeah.
reviews on Trust Radius or somewhere else? Do you have your own page, xyz.com/reviews? Did you put an effort? Because you can easily rank for that on as a first result because you own the name, right? It's your own branded search.
Mm-hmm.
And so now create that review page, put some testimonials in it, put a video of your clients and control that first result. And then whatever follows is going to be, whatever aggregator review websites are out there, that those are going to be then influencing the decision as well. But the first result is going to be yours. You have some influence here. So no, it's never as straightforward as like I went to the blog and I bought a software or I
wish it
became
was
a
that simple.
yeah, it just doesn't happen, right? Even with HubSpot, everybody's like, look at HubSpot, they got a huge blog. I'm sorry, HubSpot is also a huge brand. They run a conference that has thousands of attendees. They've got media everywhere. They own My First Million podcast. They own whatever, like they're
Story
all over
brand, all of
LinkedIn.
that, just crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just written
It's an
text for SEO
ecosystem.
purposes. Yep, and it has to tie it all. It's all one big living ecosystem, eco-organism, and that's what, as SEOs, it took a long time for a lot of SEOs to learn that, yes, you can hack your way, but then when updates like that happen on Google and all your eggs are just in SEO, go down
you're
to
out.
zero real fast.
Yeah. Wow. Look, with that said, I think we can wrap up the conversation. We've been on for a while. Where people can find you, learn more about you, and probably, most likely, ask some kind of follow-up questions, because I bet I couldn't ask everything.
Yeah, the easiest thing to do is Google my name, Scott Gabdullin. We put a lot of effort into creating our own knowledge panels and make sure that it all looks professional.
Nice.
You'll find all of my websites there. I have a portfolio of different businesses depending on what you're trying to do. If you're a SaaS business, Authority Factors is my agency for that. If you want to connect on LinkedIn, I'm more than happy to connect on LinkedIn and chat via that. But yeah, all my information is on Google, and I'm always happy to chat with folks if they have any questions.
I'm very, very happy how you pronounced my name, by the way. That was
Tomasz?
just like native. Yeah, so good.
Yeah. Well, Eastern European influence. I did grow up, I was born in the Soviet Union, so I spoke Russian, and the sounds and the letters are similar.
Yeah. You have no idea how painful it is to spell your name in the UK here. It's crazy. Yeah.
I feel your pain.
And they don't know what's happening.
Yes. Yeah, I feel your pain. My name is not the easiest either. Yeah.
I find it easy, but again, I'm Eastern European, so that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Look, thank you so much. That was such a pleasure. Thank you, Scott, again. Really mind blowing stuff, and I would love to have you again and maybe talk a little bit more about PPC because I know that's also a huge part of your work.
Yeah.
So let's catch up later. And again, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a great pleasure, and I hope your audience found it helpful. Thank you.
I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did. Thanks, man.
All right.
Okay, look, I have 4 questions in the chat. Let me see if
All
there's like
right.
just random comments or oh shit. Okay, that's David. Actually, David from my team.
Mm.
All right.
Hi,
So
David. Yeah.
hey man. um. So what do we have? Let me read it here. It's just bigger screen. So with ranking for many keywords, query counting is a good indicator, even if it's not the holy grail of keywords. Getting more is a positive signal. Now the question: how do you balance the relevance of, and in quotes, we will maybe rank for it in 12 months
Mm.
content versus
Yeah.
spreading the internal links too thin? Is there a danger there, or is it worse not to have those articles?
Um, good question. So I think that the point is, so the point that I'm trying to bring is that it's not just about ranking, right? So if you are creating an important piece of content that you know people search for, like how
Mm-hmm.
to set up a WordPress blog, if we've got 30,000 searches a month, um, the point here is not just to rank, but also to create a piece of information that clearly is part of the topical maps that Google expects someone to have if they talk about WordPress, right? So just having that, it contributes to overall authority of your site, right? In how we approach SEO. That's one. Two, spreading your internal links too thinly or too broadly. If it naturally fits within the article, I don't think it's a concern, to be honest. I know that there is a lot of
Okay.
thoughts and a lot of, you know, practices around creating internal links where everything links from one article down to another and you control every single link. Um, you can do that. It works
Mm-hmm.
probably, but once you get to thousands, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 articles, like, maintaining that structure, I think is it's not reasonable. And if I look at the top ranking websites, I don't think that they link internally in a controlled environment way. Where they link naturally, and they rank because they build a brand overall, authority overall on the site, and so internal
Mm-hmm.
links are just passing authority across many different pages. So for me, I don't really worry about that, to be honest with you. And if you are creating a lot of content, and yes, query, the number of queries you're ranking for, showing up for, is kind of can be a signal. um, I still care about creating something that Google wants to find on a website, and then naturally creating content around it, and then expanding it and naturally linking internally to it. But if I
Mm-hmm.
don't force internal links, if the article does not mention, if I'm talking about inventory management, but then another article talks about something else, I'm not going to interlink the two. I'm
Okay.
only going to
Okay.
link if they naturally connect between each other. That's the only way that the internal link will take place. That's it. But we don't, you know, force our internal links to be like, here's a map and here's 5 articles that only those 5 are going to link to each other. I know those kind of strategies. Mostly they work on local space. When you go into local SEO, that
Mm-hmm.
stuff really works well. We'll create a Toronto page, and then I will create a Toronto, bookkeeping services for Toronto, for construction worker, for self-employed, for whatever, and then we'll control that. But
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to long form content on a blog, we link naturally and editorially rather than forcing it into some kind of a wheel or whatever it might be.
I mean, technically speaking, if Google expects to find it, the,
Yeah,
the the same should be true for people, because I mean, in an
yeah,
ideal world, search engine exists for people just like any other service provider. I know they
yeah,
exist for advertisers, but like I'm talking about Utopia here. Technically, Google represents what people want.
yeah,
So if some data points at an article that Google wants, there's a demand on the market for it. So just write
yeah.
it, provide it, and it should be good to go, right? That's I think that's the healthiest way to think about it.
Yeah, and write in a ways that are actually useful. I know that useful is very hard to like figure out what is useful, but something that someone would be interested in reading, and then because you can that repurpose that later for something else outside of SEO, email, social. Like if it's a
Yeah.
good piece of content, that's not just generic, something that everyone else wrote. If it's actually good, you can repurpose it elsewhere. So I really hate the idea of writing content solely for purpose of SEO. Like I just don't like that idea.
Yeah, that
I
sounds
like
very
the
stiff. I don't know. Just
yeah,
mm,
because then it can be a stiff and dry like they're just gonna write generic stuff, right? And
Yeah.
like you always want to make sure that even if you're talking about, project management software, your article needs to include features of your product while talking about project management best practices, right? Like here's how we would solve a Kanban, and our article becomes so customized to your product now,
Yeah.
but it still ranks for the generic keyword of project Kanban best practices, let's say, or the project management Kanban,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like it needs to be unique and different and useful to the audience, and solving some problem, because then we can take a piece of it, as a word here, a word there, and publish it elsewhere, promote it elsewhere, and then do more with it than just SEO. But yeah, I don't worry about, hey, too many internal links here and there. It's blog articles, we link them naturally, editorially. We don't concern ourselves about that. And I'll be honest with you, like I said, we changed an article, completely refreshed it, went up. Do
Mm-hmm.
you think there's a crazy, it went from position 30 something, 40 something, and it shot up straight to positions 3 in the United States,
Wow.
right?
What?
Because we
That is
rewrote the
crazy.
article. I didn't go and do some kind of crazy internal linking prior to that
Yeah.
article. It just naturally gets links where it's mentioned the proper keyword, and then it shut up because we rewrote the article. And so, like I think we overthink those individual signals, and it's more about just creating something that actually something that work. Like I don't overthink internal links. If I think
Yeah.
that it's valuable to build an internal link, if it's gonna take a user to something that's relevant, I'll do it. I'll put it in there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
but
a
I
big word here is
100% want to create. Sorry.
I was just to say that I think the big word here is don't overthink it. It's just keep it simple, to the point, and I think that will win for you,
Still be
basically.
analytical. You still need to analyze, right? You still need to spend time in Google Search Console and
Mm-hmm.
see. Like we made it. Something that I recommend, something we do is we have a tracker. We'll put dates in a one column. Then we'll
Okay.
put a second column being technical SEO, internal linking, external linking, and whatever might be else, right? So some kind of category.
Okay.
And then what we'll do is old text or old what do we use the word? I don't remember. Something old in here, and then new change. And so every time we change anything in the article, let's say a title, we'll put an old title in one column, and then we'll put a new one, and then we'll put a date next to it, and we'll say in a column that's the second one, on page optimization. And then when we go into Google Search Console in 3 weeks, we try to see, hey, we changed something on, let's say, November 1st.
Uh-huh.
What's happening on November 17th? Are we moving up? We're moving down. You can see if Google is responding, which it doesn't do
Yeah.
well now. But if it's responding, you'll see it's kind of having this a little bit of a crazy fluctuation blip because signals have changed. And then it starts to go up or it starts to go down, right? So there is a recalculation happens, and then it starts to move up or down. And so we use those types of trackers. We'll create them manually, and we'll track every single change, and then we'll be like, okay, what we're doing is either helping or it's making it worse. And you do that across every single article, and that's what makes it a full-time SEO job as an agency. Is just like you're doing it across hundreds, if not thousands, of our
Yeah,
pages.
man.
um
I don't have time for this. Honestly, I'm just thinking
no.
about the volume of work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Or
think
you
I've.
can, if you can do create annotations in Google Analytics or elsewhere, right? Take a URL, create an annotation, write it up, and then you can figure out tools for that. But yeah, you want to track, you want to be analytical.
Absolutely.
We'll track internal links, we'll track changes to the copy, we'll put like completely rewrote the article as a change, and then we'll know that 2 days later rankings went up, or the next days they went up, or like we just have it factually proven there.
Yeah, so you can map it
Yeah,
back to the change essentially.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
What made an impact, I guess.
And then
The
you
other.
end up with the trackers like 10,000 rows. So yeah, depending on how many changes you make, yes, it can be a very long
I see
tracker.
how you're coming from software engineering world, or the nerd is coming out of you. It's
Yeah,
it's pretty
yeah,
cool
maybe
actually.
that's where it's coming from. Yes.
Yeah. The other comments is like just generic questions, not questions, statements. Confusing signals are pretty annoying. It's so common to see conflicting trends for the metrics even within Google Search Console.
Yeah.
And then I guess a follow up to this, because I don't have timestamps. So I don't know if these are separate comments or one big
Okay.
chunk of message. It's
Yeah.
easy to act on an impulse because clicks/impressions go down, but you might be
Mm.
missing that the position improved by a lot. So I
Yeah.
guess that's what she means by confusing signals. Yeah.
So this is where it's so I have so when you go into Google Search Console, one mistake that a lot of businesses make, especially those who don't do SEO on a daily basis, they look at the graph that's as the person mentioning is the orange line is a position, average position.
Yes.
And then they're like, oh my God, our average position is going down. Right. They're looking across the whole with no filters, no nothing. Their average position is going down. Thing you have to keep in mind is that it's average position. It's not weighted average position. Right. So average position means that it's a position across all of your articles that Google has picked up and all of the keywords that those articles appear for. So let's say you publish 20 new articles. Your average position was 50, but you published 20 more articles and then they popped into the index and then now they're showing up position 90. What happens to average? It drops because your new articles pulled the average position down because they are new. They're not going to be on a page one from day one. So now what ends up happening is that clients, they're like, oh my God, our rankings are dropping. No, they're not. What you need to do is you need to filter by page, by primary keyword you're trying to rank for, then country, and if you want to you can filter by device. Like if you want to know the difference between desktop and mobile, you can do that in Google Search Console. Basically apply filters and see how that individual page is changing for an individual keyword in a in a target market that you're going after, which is usually United States, and then make a decision on whether you need to optimize something or not. Because never go by what you see standard by default in the Google. You have to manipulate those things in order for you to get a true picture of what's happening. The other key thing to keep in mind, if you have local SEO at play at all, Google Search Console becomes incredibly difficult to use, even if you filter those things, because when you apply United States filter, it doesn't take into account that your page might be ranking differently in Michigan versus in Idaho, because those
Mm.
results might be very localized,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so you have to be very mindful of that. It's not like it gives you Michigan USA filter, it just gives you USA filter. So
Yeah.
they're pulling from some particular IP address somewhere or average across all of the markets. And so just be very careful. So a lot of analytical thinking has to go into what you're seeing, but Google Search Console is your number one friend when it comes to actually seeing whether something works or not. And then as your ranking improved for that particular keyword, it has a lot of impression, it has a lot of searches. You should start to see clicks going from 0 to 1, 2, 3, 10, 20, and just increasing as your rankings increase as a result as
Uh,
well.
when you mentioned the average, a story came to my mind about how
Yeah.
I think British Army tried to design their jets back in 1950s, and they
Okay.
they took the shortest pilot and the tallest
Okay.
pilot, and so
Okay.
the inside of the plane was designed for the average,
Yeah.
and so
Okay.
the distance between the seat and the wheel, or right, the console, all of that.
Yeah.
But it so happened that no pilot is average based on
No.
their calculations, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you can have average and not have any population for that average. So I'll be very
That is every.
careful.
Yeah.
Probably mean is better for those calculations, but I think you can get the mean position in Google Search Console. So uh,
Yeah.
yeah, you just have to be careful. As you said, it's not weighted average; it's just average.
Yeah.
So it might be that it's completely skewed, and you would be making decisions based on wrong data.
Yeah, it would be awesome if it was weighted on impressions, right? So if
True.
keyword is getting more impressions, like it should get more weight in terms of its average rank,
Yeah.
because then like that's more important to rank for. And so it just keeps it higher because that keyword you keep ranking better for. But if you have a keyword with one impression and then a keyword with 10,000 impressions and then you're ranking 90 and then it pulls your average, that's not a
Yeah.
true picture at all.
Yeah.
It's like,
It's just
who
hard
cares?
to work with that.
Yeah. Yep.
Um,
Especially when it comes to pilots. I mean, 0.001% of the population. Probably hard to find average white person.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's a
Yeah.
good point, actually. Yeah, I didn't think of it, but yeah, absolutely. But yeah, math and statistics, all of that is crazy
Yeah.
fun. I love that. I very lately read a book about um, measuring intangibles by
Yeah.
Robert Douglas, I think, and
Okay.
and
Yeah.
and he goes into the actual math of how you can calculate stuff and how probability works, and he even
Yeah.
debunks the whole concept of statistical significance, and it's just
Oh.
awesome book to read, really. So highly recommend
Oh.
that.
That's I think I'll go and check that out. Also, another point, you since you guys are running a web development agency, right? Something that you should probably recommend to all of your clients, because I know you guys are very KPI focused. You obviously want to make sure that you build websites for performance. What every brand should be doing is that they should be building scripts and pulling their Google Search Console data via Google Search Console API into their own servers. So whether it's BigQuery or somewhere else, because Google Search Console only shows you 16 months of data, but it allows you to pull all that data and then store elsewhere for you to have 24 months and 30 months and whatever months. So you can actually take all the clicks, all the impressions, all the pages data and pull it into your own
and store it there for
storage. And
better picture. Okay, wow,
exactly.
That's a good
So
question. Yeah.
100% recommend, but it's the bigger the website, the bigger the pull. We worked with a bank as a client, and every day they were pulling 200,000, 300,000 rows of data. So every single day the script was running, it was pulling 200, 300,000 rows of data for that one day. Just because it's so big of a website and so many keywords and so many pages, it was pulling enormous amount of data. So depending on how large the website is, you'll be paying quite a bit for storage, which I think is lowering prices every year, but still something to consider.
Yeah, well,
and then you can visualize it. Yeah. So yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's very good point. I mean, charts are awesome, and for nerds especially. I don't think we are in that kind of range of data. If we were pulling anything for ourselves, it would be more of hundreds of rows maybe. But still, a very good tip. Very good tip. Look, I will stop the stream now. So we just say goodbye to everyone watching. Thank you so much, everyone, for comments, questions, and sticking around. We actually had a few good viewers for the most of the conversation, so that's really awesome. So thank you very much. Again, thanks, Scott, for coming over.
Thank you.
That's all right. Oh, I stopped the stream now.
Yeah, my mic, I think it's a cable connection. It's